This is a Global Skills Podcast, conversations that shape the future of work and learning. We're exploring how we close the skills gap and build a future where everyone has the chance to thrive. From education to business, connecting people, ideas, and opportunities that drive change. It's about collaboration, curiosity, and creating real impact today. Because every skill learned brings us one step closer to a more inclusive world. The Global Skills Podcast, where learning and opportunity come together. Hello, and welcome back to the Global Skills Podcast. If you're a regular listener, you'll know how this usually goes. I'm normally with a guest, a CLO, a CHRO, an educator, policymaker, someone who's running initiatives that are working on closing the skills gap on the ground. And I'm asking about what's worked and what hasn't worked. But today's a bit different. There's no guest. It's just me. And this is something that I've been really thinking about for a number of weeks as I see the headlines. Because every question I normally ask a guest is, how do we build better learning and skills pathways? And how do we close the gap? And what initiatives actually move the needle? All of it traces back, though, to one story I keep thinking about. And so I wanted to share it with you today. It's back 20 years ago, and I still remember the posture of the person in front of me, the shoulders down, not making eye contact, and that particular way a person holds themselves after rejection has really started to not feel like bad luck, but a verdict on who they are. And I've seen that look more times than I can count. But there's one version of it I still think about, and it's one I want to share. It's someone who had applied for over 1,000 jobs. Not exaggerating for a fact, 1,000. And by the time they sat down in front of me, they weren't hoping for a job anymore. I think they were hoping someone would finally tell them why. But a week later, that same person walked into a room with a top 100 tech company and they got hired. And within a year, they were one of the fastest promoted people in their cohort. Same person, same CV, more or less, but a completely different outcome. So here's the question that's been sitting with me ever since. And it's the reason I'm recording this today. If the system got that wrong 1,000 times, how many millions is it getting wrong right now? I'm Vanessa Wainwright. This one's a longer sit than usual. So pour something, settle in, because for once, I want to actually finish a thought instead of just moving to the next question. Here's what doesn't add up. And it's the thing underneath every single one of the guest conversations we normally have on the show. Every week, employers tell us they can't find skilled people. And every week, young people tell us they can't find a job. Both of those things are true at the same time. That's not a coincidence. It's a diagnosis. Because if employers are telling the truth and candidates are telling the truth, then neither group is the problem. The system connecting them is. And I don't think that's an opinion anymore. I think it's measurable. Research from the Open University covered in Learning News put numbers on the feeling. 57% of employers say they're facing skills shortages, and that's up from last year. And at the same time, 43% hired fewer people in the last 12 months. 19% cut early career recruitment specifically. And 42% say AI is part of the reason entry-level hiring has dropped. Yet right now, for example, in the UK, 1 million young people are not in education, employment, or training. 1 million young people looking. Employers desperate for skills. And somehow we've built a system where these two groups walk past each other. That's not a talent problem. That's an infrastructure problem. And infrastructure problems don't fix themselves. They get fixed or they get worse. I started in recruitment, as I said, 20 years ago. And someone described the job to me like this. You throw buckets of paint with lots of colour at a wall and you just kind of hope a colour sticks. CVs, keyword searches, spreadsheets, gut instincts, and at the time, lots of filing cabinets. Honestly, some of it worked, not because it was good. Anyone could kind of work in recruitment, but because growth sort of covered it. When the labour market is booming, bad matching, it just looks like noise. Nobody really audits the foundation of a house when the economy is doing the heavy lifting for you. So AI hasn't broken that system. It's just turned a spotlight on the basement. And this is part of the research that actually unsettled me. PwC's 2026 AI Jobs Barometer analysed over 1 billion job ads globally. 1 billion. And a few things from it stood out. Jobs needing AI related skills are growing almost 8 times faster than the rest of the labour market. Companies integrating AI well are growing faster than those aren't. So, workforce growth of 52% versus 36% in companies least exposed to AI. And here's the one that stayed with me. Entry level jobs touched by AI are now 7 times more likely to demand senior level human skills, judgment, leadership, strategic thinking. So sit with that for a second. We're asking 19, 20-year-olds to show judgment before we even let them in the room where decisions get made. We're asking for leadership from people we've never given anything to lead. We haven't removed the first rung of the career ladder. We've just moved it up higher that fewer people can actually reach it. And this is where it gets personal for me. Years before Abodu, I helped build something called School of Sales. And people came to us after rejection. Rejection had genuinely gone into their soul. It wasn't just their confidence, but something much deeper. And over a 1-week program, we worked really hard to develop their confidence, their cognitive behavior, their emotional intelligence levels, their understanding of how to sell themselves. And then once we had the why, we did the how. So we recorded calls, we let them hear themselves back. We did personality assessments so they could unpack and uncover their human skills. But most importantly, we got to the point where they could actually assess themselves. And the person I described at the very start of this episode didn't get their talent in that week. They always had it. What they got was someone willing to take the time to actually look, guide, and they worked through a structure that they could assess their own skills gaps and start upskilling and reskilling. And that experience, being very manual, has never left me. That feeling of someone come down in through on the first day with their shoulders down, barely making eye contact, and then a week's investment, arm in the air, flying out, just exuding confidence and enthusiasm. It's the reason I can't accept there's no talent out there as an explanation for anything. There's talent everywhere. What's rare is someone building the structure to actually see it. So let me take you back to where Abodu actually started, because this is the part I don't tell often, and it connects directly to that week with the rejected job seeker. When we started, the mission seemed simple, and the name derives from this belief that everyone should have access to learning and work, which is the do, and if they have that, they can have a home, which is the abode. And the question we wanted to answer was, could we build better skills matching? Could we help people get discovered more accurately and help employers find talent without the guesswork within their organizations? And we did improve it. We achieved better recommendations, better visibility, and people were getting matched for learning who wouldn't have been seen before. But there was a problem underneath that just didn't go away no matter how much we improved the skills matching layer. And it took us longer than I'd like to admit to actually name it properly. We were building a car with no engine. And here's what I mean. Every company has its own language for skills, and the same applies for educators. Stakeholder management at one company is client relationship ownership at another, and cross-functional influence at a third. And a learning platform might call it all three something else entirely. Every education provider has its own dialect, every assessment tool its own dictionary. You can build the most beautiful skills matching algorithm in the world, and it will still fail because it's translating between languages that don't actually map onto each other. It's not a bad engine, there's just no engine at all. Just a very polished dashboard sitting on top of an empty engine bay. That's the moment the mission changed. It stopped being how do we skills match people to jobs better and became how do we build the underlying skills language, the actual infrastructure that's less skills, tasks, jobs and learning all speak to each other in the same terms. Because without that, you're not fixing the visibility crisis. You're just kind of rearranging the symptoms of it. I think about that candidate every time I think about the engine. He had the capability the whole time. The system couldn't see it because it had no shared language to describe what he actually had. And we built that organization at the time to translate him by hand, one human at a time. What we wanted to do with the Bodu was to build something that could do that at scale, translation at scale, not replacing the human judgment, but finally giving a common language to work with. I'm not the only person who landed here. This part of the conversation has been genuinely energizing to watch unfold over the last couple of years. A global study out of Chalmers University, working with industry leaders across multiple countries, looked at how organizations are actually managing skills gaps day to day. They're finding companies know skills gaps are one of their biggest threats, but most still can't define them. They can't measure them, don't have a strategy to close them. The researchers gave their proposed fix a name I genuinely love, the Skills Bridge. Not a better job board, a bridge between education and employment, between learning and opportunity, between potential and performance. And we're starting to see the bridge get built at policy level too. Across Europe, there's the Union of Skills initiative, an attempt to build exactly the kind of shared skills language across borders that I just described inside companies, except at the scale of entire labour markets. The ambition is right, even if, like most public policy efforts, the implementation will take years to catch up with the urgency. In the UK, Skills England has been set up a similar goal, trying to give employers, training providers and government a common, accurate read on where the gaps actually are, rather than everyone working off their own fragmented data. And inside organizations, we're seeing skills-first hiring move from a buzzword to an actual practice. Degree requirements being dropped, learning and development teams getting pulled into the workforce planning conversations they used to be excluded from entirely. None of this is solved. I want to be honest about that. But the direction of travel has changed. 5 years ago, I was having this conversation with people who thought it was a really nice idea. Now I'm having it with people who have a board mandate to make it real. I want to bring this down from policy and research into something we actually live through, because theory is easy to nod along and hard to actually believe until you've seen it in work. We were brought in to help with a set of roles that had been sitting open for a long time, the kind of roles that show up on every hardest to fill list, where the traditional approach is to just keep widening the job description and hoping the right CV eventually lands. It was for a top 100 technology company. And what we did was a little bit different. We started, rather than the job title, we started to look at the actual skills to tasks, breaking it down, not 5 years experience in X, but what the person actually needs to be able to do on a Tuesday in this specific role. And once you do that, something really interesting happens. You start finding people who have the right skills, but completely the wrong job title on their CV. People whose experience lives in a different industry, different function, sometimes a different country, and would never have passed a keyword filter or an AI algorithm in a million years. We started identifying transferable skills, capability that had been built in one context and was fully usable in another, just invisible to a system that only knew how to search for direct titles. And it was genuinely game-changing for those difficult to fill roles. Roles that had been open for months started closing, not because the talent suddenly appeared. It was there the whole time. It just hadn't been described in a language the system knew how to search for. And that's the same story as the candidate at the beginning, just at an organizational level. The capability was never the bottleneck. The translation layer was. For decades, the question was, what degree do you have? What job have you done? How many years' experience have you got? AI is quietly rewriting this. Can you learn? Can you adapt? Can you collaborate? Can you think critically? Can you lead? Can you grow? PwC's data says those capabilities are becoming more valuable, not less, which is the strange gift hiding inside all of this disruption. The more powerful the technology gets, the more valuable our humanity becomes. Judgment, empathy, creativity, learning agility, these aren't human skills anymore. They're economic infrastructure. So let's make this useful, not just thought-provoking. If you're listening to this and wondering what it means for you, whether you're job hunting, leading a team, or just feeling vaguely uneasy about where this is all going, here's a real way to start. First, write down what you actually do, not your job title. take your current role and break it down into real tasks you perform in a typical month. Not marketing manager, more like I write positioning for a new product launch. I brief external agencies. I analyse campaign performance and adjust spend. Job titles hide capability. Tasks reveal it. Second, for each task, ask what skill it's actually built in you. Briefing an agency well requires clear communications and stakeholder management. You're not just doing tasks, you're accumulating transferable capability, and most people never write it down anywhere. Third, look sidewards, not just up. Most people audit their skills gaps by asking, what do I need for the next rung of my ladder? But ask instead, what other rooms could these exact skills open the door to that I've never considered because the job title doesn't match? That's exactly what we found in the hardest to fill roles work. People were one honest skills audit away from a role they'd never considered. Fourth, get assessed on it properly, not just self-reported. And this is the lesson from School of Sales all those years ago that I'd never let go. Self-assessment alone is unreliable. We're all either too hard or too easy on ourselves. The actual transformation in that program didn't come from telling people to believe in themselves. It came from structured, honest assessment, followed by teaching them to assess themselves accurately. That's the skill that compounds. If you do nothing else from this episode, do the first step this week. Write down your actual tasks, not your title. It sounds small. It's the single highest leverage hour you can spend on your own visibility. Before I close, I want to leave you with some questions, because I don't think this episode should land as comfortably as a tidy conclusion would make it. Are we seniorizing junior jobs by accident? Or is it more convenient for some organizations to look the other way because hiring fewer entry-level people is cheaper in the short term? If your organization says it can't find skilled people, have you actually checked whether your hiring systems can see skill? Or are they still filtering on job titles and keywords dressed up as requirements? If 1,000 rejections couldn't break someone's actual capability, only their belief in it, how much capability is sitting inside your own team right now simply unseen because nobody's asking the right questions yet? And the uncomfortable one. If AI keeps exposing where the system was always broken, are you going to use that exposure to rebuild it or just patch over the parts that are visible to you personally? I don't have neat answers to all of those. I'm not sure anyone does yet, but I think the questions are the point. So here's where I've landed, and it's a genuine choice, not a rhetorical one. We can keep running systems built for a labour market that doesn't exist anymore. Or we build a bridge, the one that makes skills visible, connects learning to opportunity, and stops letting a missing keyword decide someone's future. Talent is everywhere. Pathways are not. That's the gap I want this podcast to close. If this episode made you think of someone, a job seeker stuck in the system, or a leader trying to fix it from the inside, please do send it to them today. And remember to subscribe. We have some amazing guests planned. Thank you to Abodu, whose skills intelligence infrastructure is helping organizations, educators, and governments connect skills, learning, and opportunity in an entirely new way. And thank you to EF Learning, helping organizations build the language, communication, and global capabilities needed to thrive in a rapidly changing world. I'm Vanessa Wainwright. Thank you for listening. And until next time, keep investing in your skills, keep believing in your potential, and let's build a future where opportunity is visible to everyone. Whether you're leading a business, shaping education, planning your next career move, or just starting out, you're part of a global conversation about how we learn, work, and grow. If you've enjoyed this episode, tap subscribe so you never miss the latest insights. And if you have a moment, leaving a quick rating really helps people find the show. For early access to new episodes, event invitations, and the chance to connect with others driving real change, join the community at globalskillspodcast.com. The future of skills belongs to all of us. Proudly sponsored by Abodu, empowering organizations and educators with world-class skills technology to build a better future for everyone.